What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Oak Tree Football channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my SEC predictions for this season. Now, the SEC is right around the corner, and I'm very, very excited for it. I love the SEC. I don't support a team in the SEC, but it's just an entertaining conference to watch. And each year, I just love watching it because it's just so much fun to watch. It's so competitive. But obviously, this is going to be a different year for the SEC. It is for all college football conferences, the ones that have already started and the ones that will be starting in the upcoming weeks or even months in some cases. It's going to be different. The SEC is playing conference only this season, which really changes things up. Some of the bottom teams in the SEC, there was a chance they could make it to the bowl game or to a bowl game this season, because they had those out of conference games, but because now they're only playing SEC games, there's a lot of a better chance that they, win 2 or 3 games instead of 5 or 6 in some cases. So it's definitely going to be different this season. A lot of players have opted out, which is, really going to play a role in this because there are teams that I think without the opt-outs could win the SEC this season. But, without these players, I think there's a good chance they don't. But without further ado, I'm going to get into my SEC predictions, starting with the SEC West. Now, the SEC West, in my opinion, is the best division in college football. I just think that there are a lot of really, really good teams in this division overall. But in my opinion, there's a team that's clearly at the bottom, and that team is Arkansas. I have Arkansas finishing 0-10 this season. Now, I don't think Arkansas is horrible, but I do think they are one of the worst teams in the in the SEC. They just don't have as much talent as other teams do. They are getting transfer Felipe Franks, which I think is going to be good for them. But they don't have too much else going for them. I mean, they have a solid receiving group, but they have a lot of missing pieces. They have a first-year head coach. And I think the pieces are, I think it's headed in the right direction for Arkansas, but I just don't see this being the year for them. So, if they continue doing what they're doing each offseason, I think in a few years they will definitely be a solid team and potentially make a bowl game in a few years, but I just don't see it this year. With an SEC-only schedule, with some tough teams there, I just don't see them winning any games. I've been going 0-10 bottom of the SEC West. Moving on to 6th place, I have Mississippi State. Now, some people really like Mississippi State this year because they really like KJ Costello. They really like Mike Leach. I don't really like that as much. I'm gonna be honest with you. Now, obviously Mike Leach hasn't coached Mississippi State yet, so it's definitely gonna be tough for him to come in here and really perform fantastic with them, which is the reason why I have them so low, finishing 3-7. But KJ Costello hasn't played a snap for Mississippi State yet either. They just have a lot of players, like new players that are good, but they haven't played yet. And Mississippi State doesn't have the best receiving group overall as well, which I think is going to play a part in their play this season. I think that KJ Costello is a good quarterback, but his receivers aren't great. He's with a new coach. Mississippi State does have Kylan Hill, who I think is one of the best running backs in the SEC, but who knows how much he's going to be used now that they're playing in Mike Leach's air raid system. It's just going to be a big question mark for me, and I see this team being just below average. I am finishing 3-7, second to last in the SEC West. Moving on to number 5, I have Ole Miss finishing 4-6. Now, I actually like Ole Miss this year. I like how they're probably gonna be running a dual quarterback system this year, which I think is gonna be really interesting. Personally, I would start John Rice Plumlee. I really like him as a player. He's a good scrambler. If he starts the whole season, he's gonna be incredible at scrambling. And if he can improve his passing as a passer, Ole Miss could actually be pretty good this season, to be honest. But they are playing, obviously, in a really competitive SEC, and I don't want to say they're going to win a lot of games because I just don't think they will, but I think they will be solid. I think they're better than Mississippi State and Arkansas, and I do think they will finish 5th in this division. Their schedule isn't incredibly tough, and, they could upset some team. They're playing Florida this week. That could be an upset, in my opinion, but I think Ole Miss is a pretty underrated team. I don't think they're, incredible, but I definitely don't think they're bad. I'm finishing 5th in this division. Moving on to number 4, coming in with a record of 7-3. I have the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, some people really think the Aggies are going to be great this year, and I think they'll be good, just not great. I still think there are a few missing pieces that certain teams have that A&M don't have. A&M do have a few tough games on the schedule. Obviously, all teams have tough games on the schedule because if you're playing an SEC-only schedule, You're going to play, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, LSU. You're going to play those teams. In certain cases, you're going to play Texas A&M as well, obviously. So there are a lot of really good teams that are going to be on your schedule. And Texas A&M has an okay schedule, for compared to the other schedules, but I still don't think the team is great. I like Kellen Mond as a quarterback. Even though he hasn't been incredible in his career, he does have the most experience for all starting quarterbacks in the SEC this season. That's going to be big. He could put up some big numbers in my opinion. So I like Mond. I think this team definitely has some good pieces, but just not enough pieces yet. And with a few players leaving this year after this season, I think it's going to go downhill a bit from here. I think they could be good this season, but I don't see them winning this division. I don't see them making it to the SEC championship game at all. So they could be better than this, but I don't think, winning the division for me. Moving on to number 3, I have the defending national champions LSU Tigers. Now, to be honest, a few weeks ago, I actually had the Tigers winning the SEC, and that's serious. But they've had some opt-outs since then, and I don't think they're going to be a terrible team because of these opt-outs. But because of this, I do have them finishing 3rd. I still have them finishing 8-2. I still think they're going to be a great team. But specifically because of Jamar Chase, there were some others, but specifically Jamar Chase, arguably a top 5 player in the nation, opting out. I just don't see this team being as good as I originally thought they would be. I still think they'll be great, just not as good as I originally anticipated. And them finishing 8-2. They actually have a pretty tough schedule, which is really going to hurt them. And I think they're going to struggle early, with Miles Brennan coming in at quarterback. And the receiving group is still definitely strong, don't get me wrong, but without Jamar Chase, it's not going to be as good as it originally would have been. So I still think LSU is going to be a really good team this season. They definitely have a lot of talent on defense and on offense. They have a great coaching staff with Ed Orgeron along with many others. But I've been finishing 3rd in the division. 2nd in the division, coming in with the same record at 8-2. I have the Auburn Tigers. I like Auburn this year. And the reason I had them above LSU, even though they have the same record, is because I have Auburn beating LSU when those two face off. I think Auburn and LSU are pretty even overall. I could see either team finishing 2nd or 3rd. Maybe even one of them could finish 1st. But anyway, back to Auburn. So Bo Nix is their quarterback. He was a true freshman last year, and he was okay. I think he'll take a step up this year. I do like Bo Nix. I think he's a good rusher, good passer. Some people are saying he's going to be a Heisman candidate. I just don't see that. But I still think he's definitely going to be a good player, and I think he can lead this Auburn team to be pretty good this season. Auburn definitely has a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They are losing some talent, which is going to hurt them, but I still think this team is really, really good, and they should finish high in the SEC West. I don't think they'll win the division because I don't think they're good enough. But I still think this team is really good, and I do think they will finish 8-2, 2nd in the SEC West, and winning the SEC West. I have the Alabama Crimson Tide coming in with a record of 9-1. So most people have Bama at 10-0 undefeated. I think they'll lose one game, but still I have them winning this division. I think they are the best team in at least the SEC West. Most people think they will win this division. Most people think they'll win the SEC, and I do agree on the division. You'll have to see if I agree on the SEC later, but this team is just really, really good overall. Nick Saban's an incredible head coach. There's nothing really you can say about that. He's just been incredible. Quarterback, they'll probably have Mac Jones, but Bryce Young could play some snaps, which it's going to be interesting if he does, because he could definitely be a really, really good player. Running back, they have Najee Harris, fantastic running back, one of the best in the nation in my opinion. Receiving group is incredible. Defense is really, really good as well. They have a good secondary. They have some good linebackers with players like Dylan Moses. This team is just great, and I do think they will drop one game. I don't see them going undefeated, but I do have them winning this division, winning the SEC West. So that is my SEC West predictions. At the bottom, I have Arkansas at 0-10. In 6th, I have Mississippi State at 3-7. In 5th, I have Ole Miss at 4-6. In 4th, I have Texas A&M at 7-3. In 3rd, I have LSU at 8-2. In 2nd, I have Auburn at 8-2, and winning it, I have Alabama at 9-1. Moving on to the SEC East now. Coming in at bottom, I have Vanderbilt, also with a 0-10 record. In my opinion, Vanderbilt are the worst team in the SEC, and I think it's possible they do get a win because looking at their schedule, a lot of the teams that they're playing are coming off tough games, but still, Vanderbilt just is the worst team in the SEC, and they definitely do have a few chances of winning, but they're not playing Arkansas, and they definitely have a few other chances, but If they're going to get a win this season, it would most likely be against Arkansas, and they're not going to be playing Arkansas. So I just don't see this Vanderbilt team being great this season. They definitely are the weakest team in the conference, in my opinion. They're probably going to have a freshman starting at quarterback, which isn't going to help them much. A lot of their best players went to the draft last year. It's just not going to be a good season for Vanderbilt, in my opinion, so easily I have them finishing bottom. In 6th, I have Missouri coming in at 2-8. Missouri is one of the worst teams in the SEC. I don't necessarily think they're terrible, but they're not as good as the rest, and when you're playing a conference-only schedule, I think Missouri will struggle. Just after Arkansas and Vanderbilt as like one of the more struggling teams in the SEC. This team isn't bad in any way, in my opinion, but they're just not very good either. And definitely they will finish towards the bottom of the SEC East. Last year wasn't, incredible for them, and I just don't think this season will be either. I've been finishing 2-8. 6th in the division. Moving on to number 5, I have South Carolina finishing 3-7. I don't actually hate South Carolina going into this year. I actually like them as a team overall. I think Ryan Helinski can be a solid quarterback. I definitely think they have some solid pieces, but this team really isn't as good. And I think South Carolina is a team that could get an upset somewhere this season, could upset someone. But overall, this team just isn't as good as, Texas A&M, LSU, Auburn, Alabama. Obviously, this team isn't as good. I don't think they're as good really as Ole Miss or Mississippi State either. I don't think they're a bad team, just not as good as the rest. They had a really tough schedule, and they still have a really tough schedule after they redid the schedule. So maybe they'd even be lucky to win 3 games. But I have faith in them. I think they're a solid team. But with a tough schedule, I'm finishing 5th with a record of 3-7. Moving on to number 4 at 5-5, I have Kentucky. Now, in my opinion, Kentucky's a bit underrated going into the season because they actually have a pretty good team overall. 2 years ago, they were a really good team. Last year, of course, it wasn't as good for them. But I think they can bounce back this year. Nothing incredible, but definitely not bad. I have them finishing right in the middle at 5-5. They are losing Lynn Bowden, who was basically their entire offense this year, which is going to hurt, but they are getting some important pieces back. So I still think this team is going to be solid. I don't think they're going to be an incredible team. I don't see them contending for the SEC East title, but I do see them being solid. Average. I'm 5-5. Moving on to the number 3 team in the SEC East, I have Tennessee also coming in at 5-5. Now, Tennessee is a pretty good team in my opinion. They had a really good winning streak to end last season. I do think they are a bit overhyped. I still think they're good, but a tiny bit overhyped. But they have a really tough schedule, and I could have put this team, 4-6 because I could see them losing 6 games. I gave them the benefit of the doubt in one of those games, put them at 5-5, but this Tennessee team could be in for some trouble this year. If players perform like they did for parts of last season, obviously at the end of the season they were incredible, but at the start of the season you can't really say the same. If they perform like they did at the start of last season, this Tennessee team could be in for some trouble, but I believe in them. I think they'll be solid this season. I'm also finishing 5-5. Moving on to the final 2. Now, there's a lot of debate about these final 2. Georgia and Florida, obviously, who will finish top of the SEC East this season. And I'm going to tell you who I have finishing second. At number 2, I have the Florida Gators finishing at 8-2. I think the Gators are a really good team. I really like Kyle Trask as a quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the SEC. But this team is losing a lot, and they still definitely have their talents. They definitely have a lot of good players, so I don't think there's any denying that. But I don't think they're good enough to win this division. They definitely have the potential to do that, and I'm not doubting them at all. I'm not saying there's no chance this team wins the division. There's no chance this team wins the SEC. A lot of people have Florida making the playoffs this season. I don't see that happening, but I do think it's possible. I mean, this team has the talent. This team has some really, really good players, and if other players can step up, this team could be really good this season. But I don't think they'll be incredible. I still think they're going to be a really, really good team, but not good enough to win the division. I'm finishing 8-2, and winning the division, of course, I have the Georgia Bulldogs at 9-1. Now, a lot of people had the Bulldogs winning this division, but then when Jamie Newman opted out, they switched to Florida. I'm still saying Georgia. I do think Georgia will be a bit worse than I did before. Before the schedule was reset and everything, I actually had Georgia going 12-0, making the college football playoff. Since then, I've given them a loss. I had them beating Bama earlier, but now I do think they will lose to Bama. That's their only loss, but I think they're going to be a good team. overall. So Jamie Newman obviously isn't going to be playing this season. Instead, they'll most likely have JT Daniels. I know JT Daniels hasn't been cleared to play this weekend, but I do think he will be back at some point. And people are forgetting how good JT Daniels can be because of his injuries. JT Daniels was a 5-star recruit a few years ago, and I really like him as a quarterback. I think he can really perform this season, and I don't think he'll be anything incredible. I don't think he's going to be a Heisman candidate or anything, but he's a really underrated player, and he could put us some good numbers this season that may surprise some people. So I just think this Georgia team is the best overall team. I think Georgia is better than Florida at almost every position. I think Florida does have the better quarterback and the better tight end with Kyle Pitts, but I think Georgia has the better defense. I think Georgia has the better running back. I just think Georgia has the better team overall, and I do have Georgia finishing top of this division at 9-1. So now to the SEC championship. Alabama and Georgia are the two teams that have making it to the SEC championship. Both these teams are incredible, in my opinion. I could see both these teams making the college football playoff, but winning it, I'm going to say Alabama. I do think Alabama is the best team in the SEC. I would have said Georgia a few weeks or months ago, but, since Jamie Newman opted out, I still think this team is going to be incredible, but I think they're going to, go down a tiny, tiny bit. I still think even if they lose this game, they have a shot at making the playoffs, even though it's not as likely. But I think whoever wins this game obviously makes the college football playoff potentially. It's the number 1 seed. I think that will be Alabama. I think it can be a close game. I think it can be an entertaining game. But I'm going to say Bama wins and probably goes to the college football playoff. So those are my predictions for the SEC this season. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. And if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe for more NFL and college football content. Don't forget to tell me your SEC predictions in the comments below. I'm very excited to see what you have to say because I think it'll be very interesting to see how your predictions are different to mine. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.